Last Friday night was busier than usual at my restaurant. I was in the back checking inventory when one of my hosts came rushing over, clearly flustered. He whispered that there was a woman at the front demanding a VIP table, insisting she knew the owner personally. I raised an eyebrow because I hadn't invited anyone that night, and my friends usually text me in advance if they want to stop by. I walked out to the front, and there she was, dressed in flashy designer clothes, loud jewelry, and an attitude that filled the room before she even spoke. She was berating my staff, saying things like, "Do you know who I am? I know the owner, and he'll be furious if you don't treat me properly." My staff looked uncomfortable, and guests waiting nearby were watching the scene unfold. I approached calmly and introduced myself with a smile. "Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm the owner here. You say you know me?" Her face froze for a second, but she quickly recovered and forced a laugh. "Oh, of course. I meant, I know the real owner, the one who runs this place." She clearly thought I was just a manager trying to look important. I pulled out my business card and handed it to her. Yes, that would be me. My name is on the license, the lease, and every paycheck. If you knew me, you'd know that already. Her confidence cracked, and she stammered, searching for words. The other guests, who had been silently watching, chuckled. My staff looked relieved. I leaned in slightly and said, "Here's how it works in my restaurant. Everyone gets treated with respect, but nobody gets to mistreat my team. So you're welcome to stay if you'd like to enjoy your evening peacefully. Otherwise, we'll gladly free up the space for guests who are waiting patiently." She turned red, muttered something about being late for another event, and stormed out. The waiting couple behind her ended up getting seated at the very table she had been demanding, and they laughed about how much nicer their night would be without her energy. That moment was a reminder of why I started this business. People think owning a restaurant is just about food. But for me, it's about protecting the culture I built, where no one gets to pull rank just because they think they're special. Later that night, after the chaos settled, one of my servers approached me with wide eyes. Apparently, the same woman had been lingering outside the restaurant, loudly telling a group of people that I was a fraud and that she was going to get me shut down. My staff was nervous, but I just laughed. I've dealt with egos before, and I wasn't about to let her shake us. An hour passed, and who do I see walking back in with two men in suits? She marched straight up to the host stand, like she owned the place. "This is him," she shouted, pointing at me dramatically. "He's pretending to be the owner. You need to escort him out." The suits looked confused, clearly not sure what they had just been dragged into. I walked over calmly, smiled at the men, and extended my hand. "Gentlemen, welcome to my restaurant. Daniel Harper, owner. Would you like to see the paperwork that proves it?" They exchanged glances, visibly embarrassed. One of them muttered that they thought she had invited them to dinner, not a spectacle. I turned to her, my voice firm but still measured. "This is the last time you disrupt my business. If you refuse to leave, I'll have no choice but to involve security. And trust me, on my property, it won't end in your favor." The guests nearby started recording with their phones, sensing the drama. The woman realized she was digging herself deeper and tried to spin it into a joke. "Oh, I was just testing him." She laughed nervously, but no one was buying it. I gestured toward the door, testing over. "Goodbye." With that, the suits quietly slipped away from her, clearly wanting no part in the scene. She stomped out again, this time to the sound of scattered applause from diners who had been watching everything unfold. That night, my restaurant's Instagram tag story blew up. Customers shared clips of the whole ordeal. What she thought would humiliate me ended up boosting my reputation. People loved that I defended my staff and shut down entitlement in real time. The next morning, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Friends, regulars, and even a few food bloggers were messaging me about the videos from last night. Apparently, they had gone viral in our city. One clip in particular, where I handed her my business card and calmly said, "My name is on the lease," was spreading like wildfire. People were calling it the ultimate owner clapback. By noon, reservations for the weekend had nearly doubled. My staff was excited, but also a little nervous. They kept asking if I thought she'd come back to cause more trouble. I assured them I had already contacted a security firm to have someone on standby, just in case. Sure enough, around dinner time, she returned. This time, she was dressed more conservatively, as if she thought blending in would help. She waited in line quietly at first, but when she reached the host stand, she smirked. "I think you know who I am by now. I deserve compensation for how rudely I was treated yesterday." I walked over, keeping my voice level. "Compensation? You humiliated my staff, lied about knowing me, disrupted my business, and nearly drove away customers. What exactly do you think you're owed?" She crossed her arms. "Free meals for a year. Or I'll call my lawyer. And don't forget, The internet can turn against you just as quickly as it lifts you up. The guests near the entrance froze, waiting for my reaction. I took a slow breath and then pulled out my phone. "Perfect," I said, dialing a number. "Let's get this documented properly." Within minutes, our new security guard arrived, along with a police officer I had contacted earlier to be on alert. I turned to her calmly. "This is the last time you'll step foot in here. You're banned from my property. Permanently. If you try to come back, it becomes trespassing. And since you love the internet so much, I'll be happy to share the security footage of everything you've done here." Her smug expression faltered. She tried to argue, but the officer was already escorting her outside. The moment she left, the entire dining room broke into applause again, even louder than the night before. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a restaurant anymore. It was a stage where entitled people thought they could play games, and I had the power to end the performance every time. I thought it was finally over once the police escorted her out, but I underestimated how far she'd go. A few days later, one of my managers rushed into my office with an uneasy look. "Daniel." She left us a review. A lot of reviews. I opened the restaurant's Google page and froze. There were over a dozen one-star reviews, all written within hours of each other, all from suspiciously similar accounts. Each one accused us of being frauds, scammers, and pretending to be something we're not. It was obvious she had either created fake accounts or paid for a smear campaign. I knew this could hurt business, but instead of panicking, I leaned into the same approach that had worked before. Transparency. I posted a public statement on our social media, explaining the situation without mentioning her name. "We'll always welcome guests with kindness," I wrote, "but we will never tolerate lies, entitlement, or abuse toward our staff. If that means some fake reviews appear, so be it. Our real customers know who we are." The response was overwhelming. Loyal guests flooded our page with genuine 5-star reviews, many sharing personal stories of how we had treated them well over the years. The negative ones were drowned out within a day, but then came the twist. She showed up again. This time, she didn't try to enter. Instead, she stood across the street, filming herself ranting on livestream. "This place is a scam. The so-called owner is an imposter. He banned me because I know the truth." I stepped outside, cameras from customers already rolling, and stood on the sidewalk. I didn't yell, didn't argue. I just held up my business license in one hand and my lease agreement in the other. The crowd watching burst into laughter, and her livestream comment section filled with people mocking her. Flustered, she screamed something unintelligible and bolted down the street, leaving her phone still recording on the ground. Someone picked it up and returned it to the police officer stationed nearby. That was the last time I saw her in person. By then, the internet had fully taken my side. Food influencers were calling us the restaurant that stands up to bullies. Reservations skyrocketed again, and our brand had never been stronger. I figured after that sidewalk fiasco she'd finally disappear, but I was wrong. A week later, one of my chefs showed me a TikTok she had posted. In it, she sat in her car, crying dramatically into the camera. "This man ruined my life," she sobbed. "He pretends to be a nice restaurant owner, but he's a fraud. He banned me just because I know the truth." The video gained some traction, but instead of sympathy, the comments roasted her. People wrote things like, "Lady, you got caught lying, move on," and "He literally showed the lease. Stop embarrassing yourself." But she wasn't done. She created multiple accounts, spamming my restaurant's name with wild conspiracy theories. At first I ignored it, but when she started tagging local news outlets, I knew I had to respond. Instead of being defensive, I invited a well-known food journalist to the restaurant. They interviewed me, my staff, and even some loyal customers who had witnessed the drama. The article went viral. Entitled "Woman's Fake Campaign Backfires, Owner Emerges as Local Hero." The breed of the game. Business boomed even more. We were booked out weeks in advance. Couples proposed at our tables, influencers begged to collaborate, and even a celebrity traveling through town stopped by. After hearing the story, meanwhile, she tried to stir up more chaos online, but every new video she posted only drove more people to our restaurant. It was almost comical her attempts at revenge had become free marketing. Still, late at night, I couldn't help but wonder what drove someone to fight this hard against the truth. Was it ego, pride, or just desperation for attention? Whatever it was, I had to stay one step ahead. It was a Saturday night, one of the busiest we'd ever had since all the publicity. The dining room was packed, the wait list stretched out the door, and my staff was moving like clockwork. I was making my usual rounds when one of my bartenders whispered, "Daniel, she's back." I turned, and sure enough, There she was sitting at the bar in a wig and oversized sunglasses, pretending to be someone else. For a moment, I almost laughed at the absurdity, but then I noticed what she was doing. She had slipped a small bottle out of her purse and was pouring something into her own drink, loudly muttering that the bartender poisoned her. It was clear she was trying to stage an incident. My security, already on alert, caught it immediately. We walked over just as she dramatically slumped against the bar, shouting, "He's trying to kill me! This place is dangerous." Half the guests froze in shock, while the other half instantly pulled out their phones. I signaled to the cameras we had recently installed. Every angle of the bar was covered. With one click on the monitor by the counter, the footage appeared, showing her pouring the liquid into her own glass. I raised my voice just enough for the room to hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. As you can see, our guest here brought her own bottle and tried to stage this scene." The room erupted into gasps, then murmurs, then laughter. The officer on duty didn't waste a second. She was escorted out in handcuffs this time, her disguise slipping off as she screamed, "This isn't over! You'll regret this!" The crowd clapped, some even cheering as the doors closed behind her. That night, my restaurant wasn't just full of diners. It was full of witnesses who had seen her final downfall. The videos went viral again, this time with the headline, "Woman arrested after faking poisoning at popular restaurant." I thought about her words. This isn't over. But as I looked around at my staff, my customers, and the overwhelming support pouring in online, I realized she was already finished. The following week, the legal side of things began to unfold. I got a call from the police department confirming she had been charged with filing false reports, public disturbance, and attempted fraud. Apparently, this wasn't her first stunt. She had a history of pulling similar schemes at other businesses, though never this extreme. A few days later, I received a court summons. She was trying to countersue me for emotional distress and defamation, claiming my public response had destroyed her reputation. My lawyer nearly laughed when he read the paperwork. "She dug her own grave the second she stepped into your restaurant with that bottle," he said. The court date came, and the gallery was packed. Journalists, food bloggers, even a few of my regulars showed up just to witness the showdown. She walked in without the flashy clothes this time, dressed plainly, but her arrogance was still there. She pointed at me dramatically, telling the judge I had conspired with the media to ruin her. My attorney calmly played the security footage for the court, the bottle slipping from her purse, her pouring it into the drink, her yelling about being poisoned. The judge's face said everything. By the time the video ended, there was no saving her case. Her lawsuit was thrown out on the spot, and the judge hinted she might face additional charges for wasting the court's time. On top of that, I was granted a restraining order, preventing her from coming anywhere near me or my business. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt a weight lift. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't bracing for her next attack. My staff cheered when I told them the news, and that night we opened a few extra bottles of champagne to celebrate. But here's the twist. Because the trial was so public, it ended up boosting us even more. The story became headline news. Restaurant owner defeats serial scammer in court. Reservations poured in from people who said they wanted to eat at the place that stood up to nonsense. She thought she'd bury me in court, but instead, she buried herself. After the court case, my life took a turn I never could have predicted. What started as a battle with one entitled woman had turned my restaurant into a household name in the city. Reporters called daily asking for interviews. Influencers begged to film content inside. And food vloggers lined up for reservations just to say they'd eaten at the place where the owner shut down the scammer. It is even the braided master out. At first, the fame was overwhelming. Every time I stepped out of the kitchen, someone wanted a photo. People stopped me on the street, shaking my hand and saying things like, "You're the guy who stood up for your staff." Respect. Even though I never asked for the spotlight, it was clear I'd become a kind of symbol, someone ordinary standing against entitlement. The biggest change came when investors began reaching out. One group wanted to franchise my restaurant, another wanted me to host a cooking show, and a publishing company even offered me a book deal to tell the whole story. I couldn't believe it weeks ago. I was just trying to keep my staff safe from one pushy customer, and now I had opportunities I'd only dreamed about. But with the good came pressure. Every night, the dining room was packed, and reservations were booked out for months. My staff was exhausted, and I could see the strain in their faces. We had built something special, but we needed to grow carefully if we wanted to keep the quality and the soul of the place alive. As for her, she had gone silent after the court loss. No more fake accounts, no more stunts. Some said she left town. Others claimed she was still trying to make TikToks, but no one was listening anymore. It didn't matter, she was part of the past now, while my restaurant was moving toward a future brighter than I ever expected. Still, at night when I locked up, I sometimes glanced at the street outside. A part of me wondered if she was out there, plotting one last desperate move. I thought she had finally disappeared, but one night proved me wrong. It was a rainy Thursday evening, quieter than usual, and I was in my office going over invoices when the lights suddenly flickered. Moments later, my kitchen manager stormed in, pale-faced. "Daniel, someone cut the power out back." I rushed to the rear exit and, sure enough, the circuit box had been tampered with. Security cameras caught everything, a shadowy figure fumbling with wires, trying to disable the system. And though she wore a hoodie, the posture and mannerisms were unmistakable. It was her. She hadn't given up. Before I could even call the police, the security guard stationed outside had already caught her. She was hysterical, yelling that I had ruined her life, and that if she couldn't destroy me online, she'd do it in person. It was darker than anything she'd tried before. This wasn't just entitlement anymore. This was obsession. The police arrived quickly, and this time, there was no getting out of it. She was arrested for trespassing, property damage, and violating the restraining order. As they put her in the squad car, she locked eyes with me and screamed, "You'll regret this, Daniel. You haven't seen the last of me." But the truth was, I had. That arrest sealed her fate. The court wasn't lenient this time. She was sentenced to time behind bars. And finally, the chaos she had brought into my life was over. Inside the restaurant, my staff exhaled with relief. Guests who had overheard the commotion applauded as I came back inside, and for the first time, I knew this saga had truly ended. She wouldn't be returning, not for a long, long time. Ironically, the whole ordeal only amplified the story further. News outlets reported it as the final act of the fake VIP woman, and people rallied even harder behind me and my restaurant. I realized then that sometimes life hands you battles you never asked for. But if you stand your ground, those battles can shape you into something stronger. After her final arrest, life finally shifted from defense to growth. For the first time in months, I could walk into my restaurant without bracing for a new stunt. My staff felt it too. The tension that had hung over us like a storm cloud was gone. We laughed more during prep, we moved with ease during service, and we started to feel proud not just of the food we served, but of the story that had carried us here. The viral fame didn't fade. It only grew. A week after her sentencing, a major food network called. They wanted me to guest judge a cooking competition. "People love you, Daniel," the producer said. "You stood up for your team. That's what audiences connect with." Then came another surprise. A local university invited me to give a talk about entrepreneurship and resilience. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of students, I realized my story had outgrown my restaurant walls. At the same time, investors began circling harder than ever. Some wanted me to franchise immediately. Others pitched ideas for cookbooks, shows, even a documentary. It was tempting, but I kept reminding myself of the core lesson. It wasn't fame that built my success. It was loyalty to my staff and customers. We decided on one expansion, not a flashy chain, not watered down, just another place where the same spirit lived. The night we announced it, the waiting list for reservations crashed our website. As for me personally, life changed in ways I never expected. Strangers stopped me on the street to thank me for standing up for the little guy. Couples asked me to officiate their engagements at my restaurant. And yes, the book deal came through. I started writing late at night after service, pouring everything into those pages. The chaos, the stress, the lessons, the victories. What began with one entitled woman demanding a VIP table had turned into something far bigger, a symbol of resilience, of keeping your integrity no matter who tries to shake it. But deep down, even as my world expanded, my favorite moments remained the same. Standing in the dining room, watching my staff laugh together, and knowing this little family we built had weathered a storm no one could have predicted. With a restaurant booming and the spotlight on me constantly, my personal life started to feel complicated. I couldn't just walk down the street anymore without someone stopping me for a photo or a handshake. At first, it was flattering, but soon it began to eat into the quiet moments I used to cherish. I had always been close with my sister Emily. She'd been my biggest supporter when I opened the restaurant years ago. But one night over dinner at her place, she sighed and said, "You're never really here anymore, Daniel. Even when you're sitting at this table, your phone's blowing up with calls and offers." I miss my brother, not the local celebrity. Her words hit harder than I expected. Romantically, things weren't any easier. I had started dating someone just before all this chaos began, a graphic designer named Claire. She was patient at first, but as the restaurant consumed more of my time, she grew distant. One evening, she admitted, "It feels like I'm dating a brand, not a person." Not long after, we split. Even my staff, as loyal as they were, started hinting that the fame was putting pressure on them too. Every night was packed, cameras always rolling, influencers demanding special treatment. It was exhausting. I worried that in chasing expansion and opportunity, I might lose the heart of what made us special in the first place. One night, after a particularly hectic dinner service, I locked up and sat alone in the dark dining room. The tables were polished, the candles blown out, but the silence felt heavy. I realized that fame had given me everything I thought I wanted: respect, recognition, success. But it was also threatening to take away the simple joys that started it all. That night, I made myself a promise. No matter how big this got, I would find balance. I wouldn't let fame swallow the parts of me that mattered: the brother, the friend, the man who loved to cook and connect with people, not just run a brand. I decided to test my promise almost immediately. The next morning, I turned down 2 big offers, one for a reality TV series and another for a massive franchise deal that would have spread my name across the country overnight. My lawyer thought I was crazy, but I knew deep down those weren't the paths I wanted. Instead, I shifted my focus. I gave my managers more authority so I wasn't chained to the restaurant every night. I blocked off Sundays for family and friends. No exceptions. The first Sunday I spent at Emily's house again, she hugged me a little tighter and whispered, "That's the brother I missed." With Claire gone, I had a lot to reflect on too. I realized how badly I had let the fame consume me, how I had ignored her when she was asking for something simple: time, attention, presence. I couldn't fix the past, but I promised myself I'd never let the people closest to me feel second place again. As for the restaurant, I shifted the spotlight back onto my staff. When reporters called, I started highlighting their stories: our head chef's journey, our host's dedication, even the dishwasher who worked double shifts without complaint. Slowly, the public began to see us not as a viral sensation but as a family that worked together. The second location opened quietly, without the spectacle everyone expected. No red carpet, no influencers, just good food, good service, and genuine connections. And you know what? People appreciated that. Customers would come in and say, "It feels real here, not just hype." That was the highest compliment I could have asked for. Every now and then, I still saw reminders of her, the woman who started it all. A news headline, a mention on social media about her sentencing, someone joking about the VIP scammer. But instead of anger, I felt gratitude. As strange as it sounded, her chaos had forced me to grow not just as an owner, but as a person. One night, standing in my packed restaurant, I realized I didn't feel the weight anymore. I wasn't fighting to prove I belonged, and I wasn't chasing the noise of fame. I had found my balance. It's strange to think how everything started with one entitled woman demanding a VIP table. At the time, I thought it was just another rough night at the restaurant. I never imagined it would spiral into chaos, courtrooms, viral fame, and eventually, transformation. Looking back, I realized she tested me in every way possible. She tried to humiliate me, lie about me, smear my business, even sabotage it in the most reckless ways. And yet, every move she made only revealed the truth more clearly, not just about her, but about me. I learned that calm can be stronger than shouting, that integrity outlasts any smear campaign, and that standing up for my staff was worth more than any table of VIPs. Today, my restaurant thrives not because of the drama, but because of the family we built inside these walls. My staff knows I'll protect them. My customers know they'll be treated with respect. And I know that no matter how big this gets, I'll never lose the heart that started it all. Sometimes, people ask if I regret what happened, if I wish I'd never crossed paths with her. The truth? No. Because without her, I wouldn't have discovered how strong we could be when tested. She came into my life demanding power she never had, and in the end, all she did was give me the chance to claim my own. Now, when I walk through my dining room, I don't see chaos. I see laughter, clinking glasses, and the quiet pride of a team that weathered a storm together. And I know, without a doubt, this isn't just a restaurant anymore. It's a story of resilience, one we'll keep writing every single day.